She did not know how many minutes she had left before her body stopped fighting. She only knew one thing. If she closed her eyes again, she would die in the snow. Lydia Hart stumbled across the frozen field outside Cheyenne, and her dress was soaked stiff. Her fingers were turning blue. She pressed her hands to her chest, trying to hold on to the little warmth left inside her ribs, but the wind kept cutting through everything she owned. It felt like the night wanted her gone. Behind her was Burke Hanley's saloon. She had escaped that place with nothing more than the clothes on her back. No money, no horse, no coat, only bruises on her arm from the last time Burke grabbed her. He had told her she would never leave him. He had told her she belonged to him until she paid a debt she never owed. But she ran anyway. Now she could not feel her legs. Her breath came out in broken clouds. Her vision went dark on the edges. Every step pulled her closer to the ground. A voice kept whispering in her head, "Not yet. Not here. Do not die like this." But the world kept fading. Her knees buckled. She collapsed into the snow, her cheek pressed to the ice. The cold felt almost gentle now, almost like a blanket. She felt herself drifting, if this was the end. At least Burke would never own her again. Somewhere far away, she heard a horse, then boots crunching through the frost. For a moment she thought she was imagining it. Pain does strange things to a person. A man's voice broke through the wind, low, rough. Urgent. "Miss, can you hear me? Miss." Large arms lifted her from the snow. Her body felt weightless, as if she were made of paper. She caught the faint scent of leather and pine smoke. Someone wrapped a thick coat around her shoulders. Someone pulled her close to a chest that radiated heat. She forced her eyes open for 1 second. A bearded man looked down at her with a face carved by years of sun and sorrow. Jack McCready, the rancher who lived alone along Powder River, a man she had only heard rumors about. Cold, silent, hard. But in that moment, he looked nothing like the stories. He looked frightened for her. "Stay awake." His voice shook. "Stay with me." Her lips barely moved. "Please, please do not let me go." He held her tighter. "I will not. Not tonight." The snowstorm roared around them as he carried her into his cabin. Firelight glowed on the walls. He laid her on his bed. Her shivering was so violent that the blanket jumped with every breath. Jack pressed a warm cloth against her hands. Her skin did not react. It scared him more than he wanted to admit. She looked up at him through heavy eyelids. Her voice was a whisper. "If I fall asleep, will I wake again?" Jack did not answer. He only kept his hand on hers, willing life back into her body. And Lydia felt something she had not felt in years. Safety. But she had no idea that this night, the night she nearly froze to death, was only the beginning. Because soon she would have to beg this rancher for something far more dangerous, a place to stay, and a place in his life. When Lydia opened her eyes the next morning, she did not know where she was. For one long second, she thought she had died and woken up somewhere warm. But then she saw the log walls of a small cabin, a fire still glowing in the stone hearth, a rough coat hanging on a chair, and Jack McCready standing at the stove, stirring something in a pot like he had done it 1,000 mornings before. He looked over his shoulder when he heard her move. "You are awake. Good. Eat something before you fall over again." His voice was calm, but she could hear the worry still sitting under it. She pushed herself up slowly. Her body ached everywhere. Her fingertips still burned from the cold, but at least she could feel them now. Jack brought her a bowl of hot broth. She held it with both hands like it was treasure. She spent the next few days mostly in bed. Her hands were wrapped in warm cloths, and Jack kept the fire alive day and night. Sometimes she drifted in and out of sleep while he sat nearby carving small pieces of wood just to stay awake. By the 4th morning, she could finally stand without shaking. Only then did she step outside with a small basket and a little more color in her cheeks. "Thank you." She whispered it so soft she was not sure he heard. He did. He nodded once, like he had been thanked enough in his lifetime and did not know what to do with more. Outside, the storm was fading, but Lydia knew she could not leave. Not yet, and Jack knew it too. He stood by the window, watching the white fields stretch all the way to the far hills. If you go out there now, you will not make it back to town. Stay till the road's clear, she almost laughed. Town meant Burke Hanley. Town meant change she could not see, but always felt. Going back was not living. It was going backward into a dark room she had escaped only by luck and prayer. She set the bowl down and spoke with a voice that trembled only a little. I have nowhere safe to go. If I return to Cheyenne, Burke will drag me back into his saloon. I cannot face that place again. What do I do now? Jack did not answer right away. He rubbed the back of his neck, thinking in that slow, careful way of older men who have lived through more storms than they care to count. Finally, he sighed. You can stay here, just for a little while. Work if you want. Cook. Help with the barn. A fair trade for a roof and warm meals. No trouble. Something small and bright flickered inside her. Hope. The kind she had almost forgotten existed. She followed him outside later that morning. Sunlight touched the snow. The ranch spread wide and quiet across Powder River Valley. It was not fancy, but it felt honest. Every fence line, every horse track, every breath of cold air. Lydia held her shawl close and whispered to herself, maybe this place could be a beginning. Maybe this winter could save her. Maybe this man could too. But she did not know that someone was already riding toward the ranch with anger in his pocket and her name on his tongue. And when he arrived, everything would change again. Trouble always seems to know when a person finally breathes easy. And for Lydia, that peace lasted only 3 days. Someone in Cheyenne had seen Jack carrying a woman through the storm, and word traveled faster than the snow could melt. Jack was fixing a fence post near the barn when he spotted a single rider coming up the trail. The kind of slow, mean ride that tells you the man is not here for a friendly hello. Jack wiped his hands on his coat, narrowed his eyes, and muttered under his breath, that is no neighbor of mine. Lydia stepped out of the cabin with a basket of fresh biscuits. But the moment she saw that horse, her face drained of color. She knew that posture, that hat, that swagger. Burke Hanley. He reined in his horse only a few feet from Jack. Then he looked right past him, straight at Lydia, like she was a piece of property someone had misplaced. Thought I might find you here. His smile was thin and poisonous. Cheyenne is talking. Folks say you ran off with the old rancher. Lydia shook her head, clutching the basket so hard the cloth tore at the edge. I did not run off with anyone. I left your saloon because I wanted to live. Her voice cracked but did not break. Not this time. Burke leaned forward in his saddle. You owe me work. You owe me time. You think a snowstorm erases that. Before Lydia could answer, Jack stepped between them. He stood tall and calm with both hands loose at his sides, but there was nothing soft in his eyes. She owes you nothing, and she's not stepping foot back in that saloon. Burke snorted. Who are you to say that? Jack did not blink. The man she's staying with. The man who feeds her and gives her a safe bed, and the man who is telling you to ride on out. Burke swung off his horse. He grabbed Lydia by the wrist before Jack could reach her. You come here right now. She cried out in pain. Jack moved faster than a man his age should move. One hard shove. Burke stumbled back. Another step, and Jack planted a fist straight into his jaw. Burke hit the snow with a sound that felt like justice. Jack stood over him. Touch her again, and you will not walk away from this place. Burke spat blood, climbed to his feet, and pointed at Lydia with a shaking hand. This is not over. Not by a long shot. Then he rode off, full of hate and promise. Lydia sank to the porch steps. Her wrist throbbed. Jack knelt beside her. You are safe here, as long as you want to be. And for the first time, Lydia believed it. But she did not know that Burke was already planning his next move, the kind that would test them both in ways they had never imagined. If you are enjoying this story, feel free to tap that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now pour yourself a warm cup of tea, settle in, and tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? Burke did not show his face the next morning, or the next after that. But anyone who had lived long enough in the West knew that silence was not safety. Silence was the sound trouble made while it was sharpening its teeth. Jack kept working as usual around the ranch, mending fences, feeding the horses, checking the traps by the stream, but every so often he would glance toward the trail with a look Lydia had never seen before. A man ready for a fight he did not want, but would not run from. Lydia tried to stay busy. She cleaned the cabin until the wood shone. She cooked stew that filled the rooms with the smell of thyme and onions. She even laughed a little when Jack spilled flour all over the table. For a moment, life felt almost normal, almost warm. But the truth was simple. She was scared. Not of the ranch, not of Jack, but of losing the first safe place she had ever known. Late one afternoon, just as the sun dipped behind the ridge, a shadow moved along the tree line. Lydia froze at the window. A second shadow followed. Then the sound of hooves, slow, heavy, intentional. Jack stepped to the porch with his rifle in hand. Two men rode toward them. One wore a deputy badge that did not sit right on his vest. The other was Burke. His smile looked borrowed from a snake. The deputy held up a paper, a claim Burke had twisted out of some crooked corner of Cheyenne. He talked about debt, about ownership, about how Lydia needed to come with them. She had known this moment might come, but not this fast, not this bold. She stepped forward before Jack could speak. Her voice did not shake this time. That paper is a lie, and you know it. If you want it signed, you will need to write the truth on it. The deputy hesitated. He glanced at Burke, then at Jack. Everybody in the county knew Jack once stood off 2 cattle thieves by himself. The deputy knew enough to stay on the good side of a man like that. Then back at the paper. Finally, he lowered his hand. Burke snarled, "Coward." Jack stepped closer, close enough for Burke to see the promise in his eyes. Lydia's not leaving this ranch, not today. Not ever by your hand. Burke looked ready to spit fire, but he knew he could not win this fight. Not with the deputy backing away, not with Jack standing firm. So he rode off with a curse that hung in the cold air like smoke. That night, with the danger fading behind them, Lydia sat beside Jack in the warm glow of the cabin. In the days after Burke left, Lydia helped Jack care for a sick calf and brought him warm tea when his back ached. Little by little, the quiet moments between them grew softer. Fear was still in her chest, but something else had settled there too. A kind of courage she had never felt before, a kind of wanting she could not hide anymore, and as the fire crackled, she made a decision that would change both their lives. Because before the night was over, Lydia would walk to Jack's bedside with a question on her lips that he never expected. Later, on a quiet winter night, Lydia could not rest. The cabin felt warmer than usual. Maybe it was the fire. Maybe it was the way Jack had stood between her and danger without a second thought. Maybe it was the simple truth she had been afraid to face. She cared for him, deeply. Jack lay on his bed, still in his work clothes, boots off, eyes closed as if sleep might take him any second. He looked tired in the way only older men look, not weak, just worn by years of carrying his own world on his back. Lydia stood near the fire for a long moment. Her hands shook, but not from fear this time. From knowing this choice mattered, from knowing she was about to step into the rest of her life. Slowly, she walked to him. Jack opened his eyes just as she sat on the edge of the bed. Before he could speak, she climbed gently over him and settled above his waist. His eyes went wide. Lydia. "What are you doing?" Her voice trembled, but the courage was there. Steady as the winter moon outside. "I am done running from my life. You saved me. You protected me. You treated me like I mattered. No one ever did that before." He lifted a hand as if he might steady her, but he let it fall back to the blanket. "Lydia, you deserve someone younger. Someone with more years left, not a worn-out rancher pushing 50. She leaned forward, placing her hands on his chest. Her hair fell around her shoulders. Her voice softened into something warm. "I do not want someone else. I want the man who carried me out of the snow. The man who listens more than he talks. The man with a good heart he keeps pretending he does not have. Jack swallowed hard. His voice cracked in a way she had never heard. If I say yes, it changes everything. She smiled. Then let it change. Let me stay here, not as a visitor, not as someone hiding. Let me stay as your wife. For a moment he closed his eyes, like he was letting the weight of the years settle one last time. Then he opened them again, and all the doubt was gone. If you want this life with me, I will give you all I have left. Every sunrise, every mile of this ranch, every part of me. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. Thank you for choosing me. Their wedding was simple, but their life afterward was full. Work, laughter, quiet evenings by the fire, small moments that stitched two wounded hearts back together. And maybe that is the lesson their story leaves behind. No matter how broken you feel, there's always a place waiting for you. There's always someone who will see your worth even when you cannot. Now let me ask you something. Would you have opened your door that winter night if Lydia had come to you? And are you listening with a warm drink in hand right now? Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. If this story touched you, give it a like and subscribe for more stories that warm the heart.